Hello everyone. After 7 years and 1 month of telling an absolutely massive lie, I feel it's time to tell the truth. After all, tomorrow's World AIDS Day, being the 1st of December, and during this story, as you may have already noticed, I'm going to have to look down. The reason I'm looking down is because I had to make some notes for what I'm going to say. Many of my friends will know this about me and Steve. Some of you won't, and hopefully some of you will get to actually see this and won't have an idea who we are. First thing I want to say is I am HIV negative and hope to remain so. This is about me and my wonderful husband Steve. He was my husband for 10 years. His name was Stephen Michael Barrell, born on the 10th of August 1966. Of course, I never knew him then. I was only 1. I met Steve in 1999. I was a nurse and he worked on the nurse bank. One day he just walked onto our ward and he made quite an impact with both the boys and the girls. The girls were going, "Cool, look at him." I just said, "Look at what he's wearing. Purple shirt, pink tie. That's one for me. Girls, get your eyes off." After a short while, and many stories later, too much for now, of course I can't tell you everything because it was 10 years. Steve and I started to live together, and this happened with some friends, mainly Richard and Aaron. One day Steve asked them, would Andy ever just see me and nobody else? I was waiting for him to ask the question. Finally he did, so of course it was a yes. We lived in London, in Surrey Quays, in a big house, and many friends came and went, and our neighbours, Julie and Ricky, had to listen to many arguments through the walls of our paper-thin house. They could hear everything. Julie had been my support over a glass of Pimm's. Well, actually it was a jug of Pimm's. She'd often forget to pick the kids up from school. And Ricky was there for Steve to have a whinge at. But they would always tell us, everything would be fine. At this time we also met John and Lisbeth. Lisbeth and John were from Denmark. Lisbeth came over to do some graphic design work as a part of a university course. So who else was better to marry us than the person living with us? And Steve and I decided in 2001 we'd get married. And we got married in Denmark, in a back garden, with a few friends there, some from England, but mainly from Denmark. Our honeymoon was so typically gay, Eurovision Song Contest. It was that one in Copenhagen. We had a fantastic time. A few years moved past and we ended up moving down to East Devon. After a few moves, we ended up at Yardley Lodge in the Gatehouse. A big estate, and we helped to run the garden. We also ran a very successful gardening and house cleaning business. We had 2 dogs, chickens, cats, fish, little house. We had the perfect life. God. We were living that dream. Fuck. There's a lot more to say, but after a while Steve and I started to get a bit annoyed with each other. And at one point Steve moved out. I hated it. He hated it. I went to Colchester to see him. He came down to see me. Eventually I said I'd move to Colchester just to be with him. He said, no, I want to come back home to Devon. That's where my home is. There's nothing for me here. So he was back. Life was good. Then he started to do strange things. He would leave kitchen cupboards wide open. He'd not notice he'd not shut the doors. While cleaning houses, he'd leave bleach and things lying around where the house had kids in. Wasn't really that great. The last time he drove his car, he drove out and he'd left his car door open, the driver's side. He'd not noticed it. Smack on the gate, I ran down the drive as I was walking up to the estate to work. Something was wrong. His walking was not good, and after many visits to the doctor, blood tests, etc., for Weil's disease, which is what we thought he'd had, we thought it was maybe neurological. They made an appointment for him to have a brain scan. This was going to be in the July. This was made in the July. The appointment was for October. Steve got worse. Down one side of his body was getting weaker and weaker, almost paralysed, as if he'd had some kind of stroke. We went to the local GP for another time, and with a bit of my nursing knowledge, I knew that Steve had had virtually every test under the sun. I knew there was one test left. This was the HIV test. Steve didn't want to have it done, but me and the doctor said, you have to. In my heart of hearts, I think I knew. Steve got worse, and we went back to the doctors, and the blood had been taken, and we were sent straight to the hospital as an emergency appointment. The hospital was the one that already had the blood for Steve's test. Steve was taken into the hospital and I had to leave him. I turned up the next day. Steve was now on a Zimmer frame. His walking was that bad. The next day was to be result day. We were taken into a side room. There we were told Steve is HIV and full-blown AIDS. Steve's reaction was to tell me never to touch him again. Not be near him and leave. Forget him. I told him that I knew he'd had it over 10 years. And all the time I've known him, I'm not going anywhere. There was no way I was going to leave him. I just held him. The hospital were great. They said they would test me. I didn't need to go anywhere else. I'd have the result in 2 days. I thought I would be positive. As you know, you're in a loving relationship. There's not always condoms in the shower or down the back of the sofa. Steve again said that he wasn't sure. I told him I was. He got it. I had to tell him again he is also going to die. The hospital almost gave him a false hope, but I knew he'd be dead by Christmas. While Steve was in hospital, I got everyone to come and see him. I raided his address books, and we had some great times, fun times. All his friends from university came down and brought a laptop with them. They tried to show him pictures of the past. It wasn't until Steve said he wanted to go to the toilet. When I got him in there, he started to cry. He admitted finally he was totally blind. He couldn't see a thing they were showing him. Suddenly I realised that Steve and I weren't actually legally married, even though we'd done it in Denmark with Lisbeth and John. So I wanted to make it legal. And on the 29th of September, with the help of some nurses who decorated a fantastic room, Steve and I became civil partners. I wanted Steve out of hospital. Being the ex-nurse, I wanted to nurse him at home. He had a nice, comfortable hospital bed. I had a mattress on the floor. Getting woken up by him every so often during the night, just so he could have a pee, a cuddle, whatever, was hard. It was nice when I had a night nurse, because them times I could actually have a sleep. Many people came to see Steve. Friends from the past, his parents, my parents. The one person who didn't come was his sister. It took her 8 weeks from me telling her he was going to die for her to get down. Steve's parents were very supportive, in a way. My parents were fantastic to me and him. Steve had a couple of strokes one night. He'd gone totally blind. He was also incontinent of both. Many of our friends came to stay to see him. Just get that one last time. Still not his sister. Tim and Steph were possibly the best people anyone could want. They were first and foremost great friends. They also raised money so Steve could enjoy his death. I told Steve on many occasions he would die any time he wanted to. I was told it was a bit flippant, but to me, you want to go, you want to go. We drank many a sweet sherry, and we also had Bailey's at 10 o'clock in the morning with me saying, can you see the twinkly stars? If you can, follow the light. But on the morning of the 1st of November, we had a night nurse. I woke up in the morning. It was a beautiful sunny day. I opened the curtains, told him how glorious it was outside. The sun was shining. It felt warm. It didn't feel like winter. I told him it was a beautiful day to die. That was at 9:15. I lay on Steve's bed with him. At 9:30, Steve stopped. His sister did eventually come down, obviously before Steve had died. But I also found out from her that Steve's ex before me had said, I am HIV positive, you need to tell Steve. She never did. I was checked for all STIs, HIV every 6 months. I thought Steve was too. He never had been tested. He lied to me. The drugs do work today, but only if you're diagnosed early. Steve had a CD4 count of 4 when he was diagnosed. To me, that equals dead. Don't let this happen to you. Don't let my story be repeated again and again and again. There's many stories to come with Steve. A much fantastic past I've had with him, but he's dead now. And hopefully I'll meet someone else. But on this World AIDS Day, don't have Steve's story. Go out there, get tested, make sure you're safe. HIV and AIDS still does kill. Get tested. Happy Christmas.